Here's what we know so far. The first batch of documents was discovered on November the 2nd of last year. A second found on December 20th in the garage of President Biden's home in Wilmington, Delaware. And then yesterday, the president's lawyers revealed that there were at least one other document discovered inside the Biden family home. On Capitol Hill today, Republicans are promising to push forward with their investigations into President Biden's handling of these records. But yesterday's special counsel appointment could cause some roadblocks. Congressional correspondent Kilmeny Ducart joins us live now from Capitol Hill. And Kilmeny, what are you hearing about the special counsel and the Republican House's ability to get their hand on the information related to these documents?
Yeah, John, that's a great question. There's been a lot of discussion about which committee is going to be handling the probe into those classified documents. One of the discussion points on Capitol Hill was the fact that it would potentially go to the newly created House Select Subcommittee designed to investigate the weaponization of government. In other words, looking into whether federal agencies are operating with a political bias. Here's what we heard from House Speaker Kevin McCarthy earlier.
It could go from that committee or others, but I think Congress has to investigate this. Here's an individual that's been in office for more than 40 years. Here's an individual that sat on 60 Minutes that was so concerned about President Trump's documents locked in behind, and now we find it just as a vice president, keeping it for years out in the open in different locations.
One of the biggest roadblocks is the fact that the DOJ, they may be reluctant to comply with some of these congressional oversight requests, citing that this could potentially interfere with their ongoing investigation.
I'm not a big fan of special counsels. I believe that the House Oversight Committee could get more information quicker. We have national security concerns about how the vice president handled classified documents. We're going to continue to investigate that. But I think the biggest thing for me and for my investigation with the Biden family influence peddling is the fact that people now see how influential China was in funding that Biden Center for Diplomacy.
And then you have Congressman Mike Turner, the top Republican on the House Intelligence Committee. He's requested intelligence agencies conduct a damage assessment of those classified documents. He's also requested briefings by the Attorney General Merrick Garland and the Director of National Intelligence Avril Haines by January 26th. In the upper chamber, Florida Senator Marco Rubio, the leading Republican on the Senate Intel Committee, he's demanded to see those classified documents that were found at President Biden's home, as well as a national security assessment, a risk assessment rather, by the Director of National Intelligence. John, though, if past his prologue, there hasn't been a lot of luck in terms of the Senate Intelligence Committee getting information from the Department of Justice. The special counsel that's been appointed in Trump's case has not been cooperative, again, going back to the idea that this could interfere in their ongoing investigation. We've heard from not only Marco Rubio, but also Mike Warner on the Senate Intel Committee, the top Democrat on the Senate Intel Committee, talking about how the briefings, the classified briefings on this, certainly trump any potential interference in that ongoing investigation. There's no reason to believe at this point that the special counsel in President Biden's case is going to operate any differently.
All right, Kilmeny Ducart live for us on Capitol Hill. Thank you, Kilmeny, for that report. And joining us now for more on this is Montana Congressman Matt Rosendale. Congressman, great to have you with us.
Thank you, John. Good to be with you today.
You know, I think a lot of people are frustrated when they hear that report from Kilmeny that you guys in Congress would be stonewalled by the Justice Department trying to get to the bottom of this, especially considering everything we know already about the Biden family's business deals, Hunter Biden's specific partnerships with Burisma and a Chinese investment bank. I mean, this stuff all does seem to be important, especially given that report that some of these documents are related to China and Ukraine and Iran and other countries as well.
Exactly. And how can the American public view all of this and not be frustrated with looks like the clear attempt of the White House to tie in Merrick Garland, the Attorney General's office, to use them as a block to keep Congress from performing their oversight duties. They want to have daylight. I stood on the House floor last week said daylight is the best disinfectant. Bring the cameras into the House chambers. Bring the cameras into the hearing rooms. The public needs to be able to hear what is taking place. And what they are seeing is this terrible double standard that we continue to witness as conservatives are charged and prosecuted and dragged through the legal system to the brink of bankruptcy, while the liberals and the Democrats across this nation have been given a free pass, and it's unacceptable.
Let's take a listen to the Attorney General Merrick Garland yesterday announcing the appointment of this special counsel.
I will ensure that Mr. Hur receives all the resources he needs to conduct his work. As I have said before, I strongly believe that the normal processes of this department can handle all investigations with integrity. But under the regulations, the extraordinary circumstances here require the appointment of a special counsel for this matter.
So, of course, that's Garland there. You know, the White House keeps deferring to the Department of Justice. Merrick Garland didn't take any questions yesterday. If you had Merrick Garland before you or any of these committees you sit on, what would be the first question you would ask him?
The first question is, why is there such a double standard? Why is it when President Trump had documents that were under lock and key that we had to have a midnight raid from the FBI, and at that time, Vice President Biden had documents that had been sitting just openly in his garage and other areas, and they allow his attorneys to negotiate the delivery of these documents to the Department of Justice. It begins right there, John, and then we see the double standard that takes place thereafter. Why is it that before Congress can even perform their oversight duties, has Merrick Garland inserted himself into this process to keep Congress from being able to perform their oversight duties? Again, they're keeping the information from the American public, and that is what they're very frustrated, and that's what I'm very frustrated with.
Yeah, you know, and I did this too, just to make sure I wasn't crazy. I took out my Constitution. Article 1 of the Constitution is a legislature. They represent the people, and if the legislature, if you guys can't get to the bottom of this stuff, who can? I mean, we got a lot of questions about the DOJ and what they're up to, and this, you know, as you indicated, sunlight here will go a long way to disinfecting this situation. I also want to ask.
Exactly why, John, which is exactly why we've instituted a new select committee to go in and look at the weaponization of the federal government from agencies specifically like the Department of Justice.
I want to ask you, too, about another special select committee you guys proposed yesterday, and it actually got a lot of bipartisan support. In fact, 365 members of the House voted in favor of this, 65 against. All the Republicans and 2/3 of the House Democratic caucus voted in support of this special select committee on competitiveness with China and the U.S.'s dependency on China. But some Democrats voted against it. That includes Ayanna Pressley of Massachusetts. And she said this whole committee, again, which got 365 votes in the House. I don't know what else could get that many votes in the House. She said it would only lead to more anti-Asian hate crimes and discrimination. What is she talking about?
I do not know, John. I will tell you. Anyone who views the world through a clear lens, not a rose-colored lens right now, can witness the attempt of China to expand their economic and their military influence around the globe, whether that is the securing of all the vital minerals that we need to build civilization and defend our country, or whether that is just to politically insert themselves through the abuses of big tech. China right now is taking every opportunity that they can to expand their military and their economic influence globally. And if you don't recognize that, you're either in a terrible state of denial or you're just plain ignorant.
Yeah, or just don't want to know. Willful ignorance is a thing in Washington sometimes. You know, I also had to ask you about this moment right there. We just saw the picture of Marjorie Taylor Greene appearing to hand you a phone with the initials Donald Trump on it. We were watching this all play out last week on the floor of the U.S. House. You appear to be waving off the phone call. A lot of folks said this was Donald Trump calling in, trying to convince you to come around on behalf of Speaker McCarthy. Give us some insight on what actually played out there, and have you had a chance to talk to the former president yet on the phone?
No, I have not, and I will tell you that the use of a telephone on the House floor, first of all, is prohibited. And it's
the rules.
Frankly. Yeah, no rules. But there are rules of common sense, courtesy, and decorum. And to reach out and call someone and then thrust the phone into someone else's face that was not did not initiate the phone call, to me, is way out of line. And that's what I told her. That was way out of line. When it comes to the votes that are taking place on the floor, I will tell you there's two things I consider, and that is how's the Constitution impacted and how are the voters across the state of Montana impacted. And that's what influences my votes.
Yeah, and you know, we're sitting here now almost a week removed from that whole entire process. How is the conference coming together? Are there old wounds that still remain, or is everyone coming around and rallying around the same issues?
I think that everyone witnessed as of Monday morning that we are all adults, and we know that the American people have charged us with an agenda, and they put us in charge. We were able to pass the rules package that I worked very hard on. That was my focus all the way through this entire process, to make sure that we passed a rules package that gave every member of Congress an equal voice, an equal representation of their constituents. That's what my focus was on, and we accomplished that on Monday. That rules package was passed. Overwhelmingly. We had 221 Republicans out of the 222 Republicans supported that. We have since passed legislation to defund the 87,000 IRS agents that the Biden administration wants to surveil people across the country. We've passed pro-life legislation already. So I would say we've got a really good start, and that's only week one. So we're going to get much done over the next 2 years.
You got Eric Swalwell and Ilhan Omar and some others kicked off of committees. You got Kevin McCarthy promising to release all this surveillance footage that has not yet been released from January 6th. Are you happy with the job the House Speaker is doing so far?
So far, absolutely.
All right. Thanks a lot, Congressman Matt Rosendale. We appreciate your time. Have a great weekend, sir.
Thank you so much, John. You as well.